Greetings, Tezos Nation. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today are Kiefer Taylor and Ryan Sears from Hover Labs and Calibri, creators of decentralized products, infrastructure, and services within the Tezos ecosystem. As always, we'll be giving away a Tezos branded Nano ledger to one lucky viewer during the stream. Today's giveaway will also include a very special bonus prize of 100K USD, courtesy of our friends at Calibri. If you'd like that lucky viewer to be you, keep an ear out for the keyword later on during the stream. Hi, Kiefer and Ryan. How are things in the USA?
Howdy. Doing good.
Yeah, doing well.
Right on. To get the ball rolling, can you tell us a little bit about what Hover Labs is and why you decided to develop such an ambitious project?
Sure. So Hover Labs is a collective of myself and Ryan who do the dev work, and then Luke Youngblood serves as an advisor. We have all worked together for a few years now in various capacities, and Luke and I kind of decided that it would be cool to start building DeFi things on Tezos about maybe a little over a year ago at this point. And so we kind of thought about what like a first DeFi product on Tezos would look like and thought stablecoins were probably like the next logical place to, build a product. At the time, only decentralized exchanges existed and fiat-backed stablecoins. And so we thought a synthetic DeFi asset would be really useful to kick off the ecosystem.
Also, it was one Dex. It was Dexter back in the day, right? So it was, unfortunately, a lot of people probably don't know this, but the timing for our release was actually, it coincided with Dexter's kind of crazy O-Day. So it was literally like, we released Calibri on mainnet, and we were drinking champagne and celebrating, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, Dexter's got to close for a bit. It's like, so, best laid plans and all that. But yeah, like Kiefer said, we have been kind of messing around with stuff. Kiefer and Luke went and built Harbinger, which is kind of an on-chain price oracle, which is super neat because it's kind of the self-sustaining thing. I think it had a grant from Tezos Foundation. A couple of roles were donated to basically make it so that the interest or the baking rewards from the actual roles that it was delegating funds to were able to pay for the transaction fees to actually post updates itself. So it was kind of this fully sustained price oracle, and it's still running today, and it still runs Calibri and posts updates hopefully every 15 to 20 minutes.
It seems like it's being used quite a lot lately.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're always looking for kind of newer integrations with other exchanges and stuff. That's always been, it's kind of one of those things that, we've got a million paths ahead of us in terms of what we can do and where we can spend our energy. So right now, like what we have works well enough, but if Coinbase goes away or decides that they want to turn that off, it is one of those that, we would be in a situation where we would then need to go very quickly find something else. So we want to have something in kind of in the chamber, so to speak, for if/when that happens, just to improve resiliency.
Speaking of like a million paths ahead of you, how has your sort of mission evolved as you've gone further along this path?
I think, making the stablecoin was kind of the easy part, and then actually generating adoption and use cases around it is the harder part. So I think when we started out, we thought we were just making a stablecoin, and now we're building a kind of suite of other synthetic products around it, whether that's like a liquidity pool, which is a way that users can pool together their KUSD to help liquidate under collateralized loans. One of the improvement proposals we have out right now, which I think we might talk about later, is for like a savings rate. So you can save your KUSD and get interest from the protocol on it. And I think there's like a number of other kind of ideas that we've sort of messed around with, like a lending platform being one. So you could borrow XTZ by collateralizing a loan with KUSD, which essentially lets you do a trustless short of the price of XTZ. Whereas KUSD lets you do a trustless long of that price. Yeah.
It's also been really interesting because we've gone from, it's very akin to like an open source thing where you build something because you want to build it or because it needs to exist. But then there's this other stuff too, right? It's community building. It's making sure that there's a forum. It's making sure that things are accessible to people. So it's one of those things that, our DAO operates on Nicholson Lambdas. And that's one of those that it's basically just computer code, but it's computer code that's very difficult to write. So it's a situation where like it's easy enough for us to just say, oh yeah, like it's there, anybody can submit it. We built you a front end for it. But to make it actually usable and accessible to people are now what we've kind of had to shift our attention away from. So instead of like core protocol dev stuff, which we did for probably the first 6 months purely, we're now in the land of kind of answering questions and making sure that people have a strong understanding of things, docs writing, and then on top of that also refining the tools and adding kind of developer platforms and make it so that people can actually integrate with this thing and use this thing in a way that they're confident with. So it's been a bit of a shift for sure, and it's kind of the wearing many hats thing, but it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. I think me and Kiefer and Luke all enjoy wearing vastly different hats every day. So as long as it keeps it interesting, that's the thing that I'm generally here for.
We're all incredibly ADD.
Yeah, that's the much
you're in the right business.
Exactly. Yeah, things change so rapidly that it's good to have the attention span of a squirrel.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit about Calibri and why a stable coin, you felt like that was an important place to start for all of this?
Sure. So stablecoins are awesome because you get all of the properties of like cryptocurrency, that it's like uncensorable, you can pay anyone, it's really fast, but you also get a stable store of value. And so Calibri is an algorithmic stablecoin rather than a fiat-backed stablecoin. So a fiat-backed stablecoin is like, you give me $1, I give you a coin, and you can always give me the coin back and get your dollar back. Which works great as long as you trust me to not run away with your dollars or give out tokens that I don't have backed by dollars, or that like regulations prevent me from ever doing business with you again. And so Kolibri is an algorithmic stablecoin, which means that it keeps its value close to $1 using pure computer programs, which is much more trustless and lets you kind of have this synthetic asset that looks a lot like $1 that gets you like a stable store of value or means of exchange, while also having all of the cool properties of a cryptocurrency. And so it's a pretty like important thing in the system, in like a DeFi system, to let you transact. It's also really cool because it essentially lets you leverage your crypto. So you could imagine if you had a bunch of XTZ or Tezos, and you didn't want to modify that position, but you wanted to take a loan against it, Calibri lets you do that. So you can lock up your XTZ in this like smart contract, and you can go take a loan and spend KUSD paying people or like paying a contractor while maintaining your exposure to the underlying asset. And then it's also really cool because you can also sell that KUSD and buy more XTZ, which lets you essentially long the price of XTZ. So if XTZ goes up, you can buy back the KUSD for cheaper, repay your loan, and keep the profit. So it lets you kind of start doing these like cool like DeFi things, and it lets you have like a stable store of value for people to actually like exchange monetary value in, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, I tend to think of it like a fulcrum, right? Where it lets you kind of do a number of new things that you can't just do with pure XTZ. The whole idea is that each one of these loans is kind of collateralized, way over collateralized. So it's a 200% collateralization ratio, which means that for every $1 or $2 in Tez you put in, you can mint $1 in KUSD. But the entire system itself is collateralized to like 600% or something, because people basically don't want to get liquidated. This whole liquidation process is part of this economic kind of balancing act to keep things at $1. And then there's a couple of kind of levers that the protocol has to kind of adjust fees and collateralization ratios and stuff like that to like make sure that we're at $1 or around $1, right? Yeah.
So in terms of that relationship between the stable coin and the dollar, whether it be algorithmically or the more traditional model, can you just explain a little bit more about the relationship between a stable coin and the dollar that allows the coin to be considered stable?
Well, with Calibri, it's one of those that the dollar was picked just because it's kind of the reserve currency for the world. There's nothing saying that it had to be $1. We could actually have this be a 15-cent stable coin, or it could be pegged to the euro or whatever, right? So it's kind of one of those that that was kind of how we got to $1. Just also because we're Americans, it's kind of our natural currency of choice. But yeah,
I think as well, one design consideration we have here is we need a price oracle for the price of XTZ and whatever asset we want to peg to. And so we don't have a good price oracle for, say, like GBP or like euros. We would love to have an exchange run a Harbinger price oracle for those sorts of things. And if anyone, happens to know an exchange or like a reputable company who's interested in doing that, we would really, really love to talk to them.
I'm sure it's only a matter of time, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Again, it's the 1,000 roads thing. We could actually go be banging on the doors of every centralized exchange kind of out there to try to get KUSD listed. It would help liquidity quite a bit because it would help kind of bridge the gap. But right now we're focused on things like governance and kind of forums and community management. And there is really only, 2.5 of us, if you will. And so, we're always looking for other people to kind of help. When I say 2.5 of us, I mean Hover Labs itself, the people kind of dedicated fully to this protocol. But we also have an amazing community it's really kind of growing and flourishing right now. But we're always looking for ways to grow it. And some of this might be incentive programs and stuff like that, where if you help out the protocol, or even passing a successful governance proposal may net you some K DAO just as a result, and just to kind of help close the loop, if you will, of incentives.
Very cool. So speaking of involving other people, we have our first audience question that's come through here. Marco would like to know, is Luke still on the team?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Luke serves as an advisor to us and has always been in that capacity. So he, Ryan and I have been in the trenches writing code, and Luke is our, kind of expert on the larger crypto ecosystem. And we're both old friends with Luke for many years. And so we talk every day, regardless of whether it's about Calibri or not.
Yep.
And yes, Luke is still on the team, but very, very busy. And
oh yeah,
hard to pin down to get on a live stream, and
kind
of less involved in day-to-day product roadmap at this point and more big picture stuff.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that the man has time to sleep personally. But yeah, when we were originally kind of throwing this around and kind of deciding what to do, we divvied things up. I think it's 45, 45, 10, and it's one of those that that's kind of the allocations, and that's kind of where we're at. All of this is kind of public, and it's one of those that it's been it's worked out really well for us, because like Kiefer said, Luke is kind of our subject matter expert in all things DeFi, and has connections kind of to the real cryptoverse in very tangible ways. He's also doing things like flash bots over on the Ethereum side of the house, and all that fun stuff. So it's really interesting to have somebody who can kind of help higher level kind of strategy, when we can just go dive into the trenches and go okay, we need this button to be round. Nailed it.
Absolutely. Another audience question here. Matt asks, any thoughts on multi-collateral KUSD? Is this on the roadmap?
We get this question a lot. Yeah, it's a situation where I think that the concept of multi-collateralized KUSD is neat, but what it ends up doing is actually expanding the kind of risk surface to the entire protocol. So essentially, if we started collateralizing, KUSD with something like USDTZ, right? At that point, there's risk on that minter in the same ways that kind of Kiefer was alluding to earlier. Or if we started backing it with Crunchy or Plenty or whatever, if any of those protocols become insolvent, then suddenly we, as a result, become insolvent as well. And then suddenly we're kind of getting echoes of 2008 housing crisis, where one thing exploding can bring down the entire infrastructure and it falls like dominoes. Right now, the really nice thing is that Tezos at its core would have to fail for Kolibri to fail. And that's a really good position to be in. And unless we have a really strong need to kind of go multi-collateral, so zooming out, right, on the Maker DAO side over in Ethereum land, the reason that they went multi-collateral, as I understand it, is because they had a hard time basically keeping peg low, where there was so much demand in the DeFi space for DAI that they basically said, we need to collateralize this with other stuff. There's just not enough Ethereum to actually collateralize all of this. I hope we get there at some point. I really do. but there's a lot of very scary kind of risk things that kind of happen within there. And then we've also got other controls like the debt ceiling that can help kind of manage some of that risk. The way that MakerDAO and DAI kind of work is that they have different baskets that have a fixed reserve amount of DAI that are allowed to be generated through that basket to make sure that things are always collateralized. There's a lot of economics kind of at play to do something like that. So it's one of those things that we're this big, once we're this big, maybe.
I think as well, one problem we have there is like that we need reliable prices for this stuff, and there is not an on-chain price oracle for like a DEX on Tezos. So like even if I wanted to go back like KUSD with Crunchy, I can't do that because I don't have a reliable price feed. I'm hoping, and the caveat there is I actually haven't checked out some of the new DEXs that have launched, or like at least in detail. So maybe Spicy Swap or something does have this, and I think they were working on that. But I think like the other thing is like there's not that many assets on Tezos that I would want to collateralize things with. Like a lot of the most interesting assets are like governance tokens that don't seem to have much use yet. And so I think their value is very, very speculative, and I don't think that makes them a good backing collateral for a stable coin.
Arguably, I would also not call those DAO tokens, but
sure.
That's my personal opinion, considering that we worked our asses off to make our DAO tokens actually do DAO things.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of like interesting things like from Wrap protocol. I think like that there's sort of like another risk parameter there of like, what is this, like how secure is their bridge system, and like how many signers are there, and like how much like, how much liquidity has actually been brought over, and would that be worth engineering an entire system? And I think when I look at like, and again, we need a reliable price feed for those things anyway. And so when I look at like, all of the things that we could go run off and build, like I don't see a huge need to do multi-collateral right now, because I'm just not sure what else people would do collateral with. It just sounds like a neat feature, which introduces a lot of risk.
And complexity from a contract level, because it's one of those that like to actually build this in a way that is also balanced and tested is hairy, right? To actually switch over components, like within the Calibri protocol, we just swapped out the minter, for example, and that was a very like Indiana Jones, grab the golden idol, put the bag of sand, like kind of moment. And so to do something like go multi-collateral, we would actually end up doing a whole bunch of other things just like that are basically scarier, because we would be swapping out multiple components to do it, from what I understand.
Okay. So speaking of DAO tokens, as I understand it, you've had 5 proposals go through on Kolibri DAO so far. What's the participation from the community been like, and have there been any important takeaways from those 5 proposals?
Yeah, we've seen like really, really high levels of participation, which is awesome. So I think in the second to last proposal, and I just didn't do the stats on the latest one, 72% of circulating KDAO participated in the vote, which is awesome. So like almost 3/4 of our community who like hold KDAO are like paying attention, engaged, and like willing to go cast a vote. And then of those voters, like 90% voted yay. So like it also kind of symbolizes, I think, that, a lot of people are in agreement with sort of the things being proposed, and like that there's strong consensus about this stuff. And we work really hard to build consensus off chain before we throw proposals on chain, which is, super fun. And I think we can demo a bunch of like stuff around that about how we kind of form those consensuses before we do things.
Yeah. As far as takeaways go, this is still very early on in the protocol. This is the first kind of real DAO in a lot of ways on Tasos. So we have had a couple failures now of kind of proposals due to software bugs, but they've given rise to a number of kind of new interesting things that we built. So like we built out an entire sandbox to go simulate proposals. We've now built things like a proposal generator that kind of takes all the coding and kind of headache out of a lot of this kind of stuff. One of our most recent proposal actually just failed on chain just because of a software bug. That was totally my fault. Sorry. But it's one of those things that, we're now kind of brainstorming ways to make sure that that sort of failure never happens again. And this is all just kind of how this stuff works, right? It's all software. I'm frankly amazed that planes aren't falling out of the sky, considering that software runs them. So it's about kind of the safety critical engineering where we can build things and simulate things and test things in a bubble to make sure that they're going to execute properly on chain or catch bugs before they're ever introduced, and stuff like that. And realistically, like, things failing on chain is actually a good thing in my opinion, because it's much better than some bad parameter getting into the ether and then all of a sudden kind of dismantling the system from the inside or whatever. So it's that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But likewise, we've also learned that like off-chain coordination is really interesting or important. So giving people a voice. One of our first kind of stabs at this was kind of this Calibri improvement proposal system through GitHub. We got some feedback that like GitHub is not what people are kind of used to using, or very is kind of confusing to use. As software engineers, we were like, oh, of course, like this fits perfectly within like the Git workflow and the software development lifecycle, and we can just open pull requests, and each pull request can be a Calibri improvement proposal. And it's one of those things that being that close to the problem space, then suddenly community comes in and they go like, hey, what the fuck is this? We don't know what these are or how to use these things. And we go like, oh, okay, well, let's fix that. So some of this has been a lot of adaptation kind of as we've needed to. Also, I'm sorry if I swore and that's not allowed.
That's okay. We allow it.
Excellent.
So we're getting a lot of questions through that seem like they could be answered very well with a demo, which I understand you guys are prepared to do today, which I'm excited to see as well. But before we do that, we want to announce the giveaway word for the Tezos branded Nano Ledger and the 100K USD. The keyword is !Kolibri. Enter it in the live stream chat, and Nightbot will randomly select today's winner, and we'll announce that winner before the end of the stream.
So wait, are we allowed to participate? I want a ledger. Jeez.
Before we get into the demo, we've implemented a new feature called the lightning round, and I was wondering if you guys wanted to give that a go today.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Sure.
Remember, there's no wrong answers here. This is just for fun, so the viewers can get to know you guys a little bit better. Are you ready? So right off the top of your head, burgers or dogs?
Burgers.
I like all sandwiches.
Ooh, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Simpsons or Family Guy?
I gotta go Simpsons.
Simpsons.
That is the correct answer.
That is definitely the correct answer.
Cats or dogs?
I mean,
Dogs.
Dogs. For sure, dogs.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Both? I like Asian food. Good.
That's fair. That's fair. Taking your shoes off on an airplane, acceptable or unacceptable?
Do sandals count? I mean,
only acceptable on long flights.
Yeah, and if your feet don't stink.
I feel like long haul anything goes, right?
Yeah. What I like to do is I like to shove my foot kind of in the space with the seat in front of me. I just kind of tickle the person in front of me with my toes. Good. No, I'm kidding.
I love those people.
Yeah, Harry Howitt feet. We were just talking about this before the stream.
The next place you plan to travel is?
Mexico.
Probably back to San Francisco. I haven't been back in a couple of years, and it's been killing me a little bit.
Oh, domestic? New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Kiefer is also a nomad, by the way. He literally travels around all the time. Like, I think in the year that we've been building Calibri, he's actually lived in about 6 different places. So it's
sounds awesome.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Kiefer, in 5 words or less, how would Ryan describe you?
Shadowy supercoder.
Shadowy supercoder. I like it.
Nice.
And Ryan, same question, names reversed.
Total badass, gets shit done.
Very nice.
Also,
and finally, movies or video games?
Video games.
Yeah, video games for sure. I just played through Far Cry 6, and that game ate my life for the past week. So good.
less time to do post-it note art like you have behind you there.
It's true. No, this was all due to COVID. I went a little beautiful mind. I spent a lot of time in my office here. So.
Very, very, very impressive.
Yep.
Okay, that concludes the lightning round. you both, we're all winners. We're all winners.
Hooray!
Are you ready to get into the demo?
Sure. I think it probably helps to like give a little background about how the DAO works, and then we can do a quick demo. So Calibri has a number of things that can be governed about it, including like the contracts themselves. You can swap out contracts and do like feature upgrades. We can also do like simple economic parameters, economic parameter changes. And so the way that our DAO works is that we distributed a token called KDAO, which is the governance token of Calibri, to the users of Calibri. And then we're also emitting KDAO from some liquidity mining and farming incentives, which we'll show you. And it's a completely programmatic DAO. So there's not like humans involved, like Hover Labs isn't involved at this point in like changing these parameters. So you submit a proposal to the DAO, which is a block of code that will execute if voters agree to execute it. And that block of code will go out and call smart contracts in a privileged way and make changes into the protocol. And then I think what we wanted to demo today is that as a spam prevention measure in the DAO, so the DAO may only have one item under vote at a time. And so what we do is we force, whoever makes a proposal to escrow some KDAO with us. And if they don't get, 20% of people who say yes to their proposal, the KDAO escrow is lost. So today that escrow is set at 3,000 KDAO, which is really like relatively high. And so as a result, only like 8 people and Hover Labs can propose to the DAO. And so one of the actual things that we've been talking about in our community is like, if we could lower this and make it so more people could become more involved in governance. So I kind of wanted to show how this works today.
And just to give an overview here a little bit, like this will also demonstrate things like our sandbox. So like I said, after kind of the first proposal failed, we went and built the whole sandbox infrastructure. So everything that you're going to see here is kind of in this sandbox, and we've hooked up all the front ends to it. Oh yeah, and then this is the forum as well. So we went and built out a discourse-based forum that has things like signal requests, which is what this is, and this is kind of the new home for Calibri improvement proposals. So as people have kind of formal changes that they want to make or new components that they want to add or whatever, they would put in a Calibri improvement proposal. It'll sit there and kind of we'll discuss it as a community, kind of off-chain, coordinate off-chain, and then eventually put it on-chain for a vote and stuff like that. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Is Kiefer put out a signal request that said, hey, like we know that we want to lower this from 3,000 KDAO that you have to lock up to some number lower than that, but we don't really know exactly what it should be, right? And this is the kind of the wisdom of the crowd thing. By opening it up to our community, we get to have them kind of debate and think about it as well as us, and kind of what's the saying? None of us or all of us isn't as stupid as some of us or whatever. And so now it's a good situation where we can actually go take this poll and then kind of enact whatever community will is, right?
Could anybody bring forth a proposal on the forum?
Of course, yeah. There's no requirements. All you got to do is register at Discord or discuss.calibri.finance. And we also do things like you can log in with Discord, you can log in with GitHub, all the social logins and stuff like that. I've also set it so that it won't spam you to death because like Discourse likes to send out emails. So I think it's like once a week, maximum it'll send you a thing.
Yeah. Cool. So I actually started this forum post like 9 days ago. And so it's just a like simple poll that says, hey, we think maybe we want to change this. And so, this is circulated among our community, and I kind of put together like a bunch of details of like, what are we talking about here? And like, why is this important? And then like, some stats of saying like, hey, if we lowered it to like these different amounts, like we would get like this many people who can submit. And so over time, the community has like come and voted here. And so it looks like, right now, and I'll probably leave this open for another day or two, like it seems like 80% of people are happy with just saying 1,000 KDAO is like a reasonable escrow amount where we feel confident that, the protocol won't get spammed, but we'll get, a lot more people who can like start participating in governance. So, hypothetically, if I was ready to do this today, and I'm going to switch over to the Calibri app, and as Ryan said, this is sandbox.calibri.finance, which is a version of Calibri which runs on a private Tezos blockchain, which we control. And so block times are about 4 seconds, and it's super fast, so we can like test things and iterate on it. And so I would go into the governance portal, and this is also the Sandbox governance portal. And so this is the like DAO proposal flow. And so you can see right now, the proposal for this Sandbox is just 1 KDAO, which is small so that anyone can come here and use it. But let's say that I want to go, submit a change that changes it to 1,000. So as a KDAO holder, and I'm currently holding 90,000 KDAO in this address, I can go ahead and hit create proposal. I can write in here like lower the KDAO, lower the escrow amount, and then I'm going to write a description. So I've pre-populated one and just written it in a little GitHub gist, which is, make Calibri governance more inclusive. So I'm going to go grab this link, and it will pull that in as like a hash. And we do this so that we're not taking up like space off on-chain. So on-chain space is relatively expensive. So we let you put a title in this proposal and then say like, please link us to wherever the actual description of this thing is.
And then the description hash is also to prevent people from changing it afterwards. So since we are essentially giving people around the internet the ability to display stuff within the DAO, we take a snapshot of it, point in time, and submit that. And then if there's something different, so if you go and change, I actually meant, I wanted to raise the thing or lower it, then the hash will fail because you've changed the description, and we'll display that accordingly.
Yeah. And then as we mentioned before, all of this is programmatic, right? So like at this point, you might be thinking, oh, I have to go write some Mickelson that's going to change this, which is relatively hard because there are not many Mickelson experts. And I think there are very few Mickelson experts who are also deeply involved in our community. So Ryan has built this like really cool proposal Lambda wizard where we can just go and generate code for you. So the default one here is like, go to the Minter contract and change the stability fee. And so if I actually, wanted to set the stability fee to like 10%, you can see like this number here updates, which changes the stability fee in the protocol. And this is all generated code that will get submitted to the DAO and executed trustlessly. And now no one had to like go write this. So
well, and when we say Mickelson, that's what we're talking about. Is that code at the bottom? That's the blockchain kind of assembly language, if you will.
So what we actually want to do here, of course, is go update this escrow amount. So there's a number of components here that we can change various things in. And so like the Kolibri DAO has a workflow where we can update the escrow amount. And so I'll set this to 1,000 KDAO. And this Lambda happily generates. And at this point, without having to write a line of code and just doing this all in the browser, I can hit submit proposal. My Tasos wallet will open up, hopefully load. We will confirm this. And then the transaction will get submitted to the blockchain, which is cool. And this page will reload. And now you can see that there's a proposal under vote. So it pulled in, my description from GitHub here. And then
you should probably vote before it closes.
Oh yeah, sorry. And then
so block times are quick.
60 seconds before it closes. So I'm going to go ahead and vote yay on this parameter. And so the DAO has 2 requirements for passing a proposal. So it needs to achieve a supermajority of 66% yay. So 66% of people need to say yay, which we've done here. And then it also needs a quorum. And so quorum is a floating number that changes, much like Tezos governance quorum. And so it has to hit both of those things in order for a proposal to be accepted. So at this point, the vote is open. It will end in about 20 seconds. And assuming no one else is on Sandbox voting right now, we would expect it to go ahead and pass.
Yeah. Well, and the way that the Sandbox is also set up is that, there's an Alice and a Bob account. This is just the Flex Tessa sandbox that we've kind of deployed. So there's really 2 accounts, but as part of the kind of deployment of all of this, we've actually given Alice, I think it is, I think 90,000 KDAO or whatever. And then that's kind of the private key that everybody can use to be Alice on the sandbox, which is nice. So we're working on kind of productizing this and making it more generally available to people, just so that they can also kind of do all of these things that we're doing. It exists right now. People can kind of use it, but we just haven't publicized it because we want to write a blog post and kind of docs on it and all that other stuff. So you're getting kind of a sneak peek of what's coming soon.
Cool. So the vote ended. We met quorum. We met supermajority requirements. So it looks like it's going to pass. So I can go ahead and finalize this vote. And this will move this Lambda into a time lock. And so the time lock means that, if we change an economic parameter, users of Calibri have some time to adjust their positions in case it's a thing that they don't agree with. So they can unwind positions, they could exit the protocol. They have time that is programmatically guaranteed to make changes. That overnight, you're not going to wake up in the morning and the interest rates can be 1,000%. And if it is, you have time to get all of your, XTZ out and not have to suffer that.
Yeah, a lot of this game has been kind of setting up incentives such that people don't act badly within the protocol and they're kind of influenced to act good within the protocol, right? That's a very difficult thing to kind of do. This is kind of this idea behind the escrow amount. This is the idea behind the time lock, is to kind of realign people's incentives and make it such that, the betterment of the protocol is kind of the first goal. And so yes, people could put in a proposal that says, pay me 250,000 KDAO, but it would likely not pass, right? And on top of that, they would also lose what escrow they put in as a result of kind of trying to put in that bad proposal. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
and so again, I think just to be really clear, we're running on a sandbox, so the times here are really short. In practice, a vote takes 4 days, and then a time lock takes 3 days. So it's kind of like a week-long cycle from someone submitting a proposal to it actually getting executed. And generally proposals start way before that, so they'll probably sit in the forum for a week and get comments on them. So it's sort of like a 2-week-ish governance cycle.
Yep.
But anyway, since we're on Sandbox and my thing was only 2 minutes long, I can actually execute this. And so at this point, that code that got generated is just going to run in a contract and go make some changes. So if I
go ahead. I was going to say, you should open it up in the Block Explorer, but it was such a fast block that it didn't give you a second. It's fine.
Yeah. And so anyway, you'll see, the proposal escrow has changed to 1,000 KDAO. And so this change we just totally made, in a web browser with trustless execution of this DAO with, KDAO tokens that voted and made this change.
Without writing a single line of code, right? It's these high level workflows. I want to do this thing. Why make people sit there and do all the stuff kind of involved? Also, Kiefer, if you click on that wheel in the bottom, and you go to Kolibri DAO, then this will take you straight to the contract. On the sandbox. So we also deployed our own version of Better Call Dev, which again, shout outs. I've given a shout out to them every single time that I'm on any form of a camera, and they are some of the better teams kind of in the Tezos sphere. Better Call Dev is literally one of the best tools I've ever seen for this kind of development at all. So 2 thumbs up for me. But this is actually the proposal that we just went and did, right? So this adjusted the escrow amount by, so since it was 1 and we had a vote for 90,000 or 89,000 or whatever, it adjusts it way up. And then you keep scrolling down, you can see it executes the time lock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
There was another thing I wanted to get a look at while we're doing the demo, but before we do that, we have a winner of the Tezos branded Nano Ledger and the 100K USD. It's Nice Person. Email us at social@tezoscommons.org and we will sort you out once we've verified you. Heck of a person. Yeah. And what I was wondering is, can we have a look at some of the farms? Speaking of incentives.
Sure. So at this point, hopefully if you're on the live stream, you're like, wow, how do I get KDAO? How do I get to participate in this process? And so
maybe just check out the production farms though.
Oh, sure.
Sandbox, because there's no thing in the sandbox right now.
Yeah, so you can jump over to like the actual Calibri.finance app. And so you can come into farming, and the protocol is going to drip out 30% of KDAO tokens. So KDAO has a hard cap of 1 million tokens. There will never be more than 1 million KDAO. And so 30% of those are earmarked to come out of these farms over the next year. And so we have 3 farms now. The DAO itself has 35% of the KDAO, which it can use in the future. So other people could make DAO proposals that, make new farms if they wanted to for new things. And as long as KDAO holders approve them, they will come into existence.
We've called that the community fund, just terminology wise.
Right. Yeah. And so there are 3 farms that we currently offer. The first is for LPs to Kipu swap. So a stablecoin relies a lot on having liquidity on dexes for good price discovery and stable value, right? So we want to incentivize people who are providing liquidity for KUSD. We offer a KUSD farm, which is just people who hold KUSD who are participating in the protocol. We want to reward them and get more people to come play with Kolibri. And then we have a QL KUSD farm, which is a RLP token for what we call the liquidity pool. And so the liquidity pool lets people pool their KDAO or KUSD together in order to liquidate under collateralized loans. And this is really useful for the protocol because if loans aren't liquidated in a timely fashion, the protocol becomes insolvent and unstable. So obviously we want to incentivize people who are going to pool their capital together to help that not happen.
And that was actually one of our big proposals that we just changed here. So I think, proposal number 4 that we executed on the DAO actually changes the way that liquidations work within the protocol. So it used to be that it was kind of a free-for-all. The liquidity pool or individuals could liquidate any ovens as they became liquidatable. What we've done is we've updated the minter such that the liquidity pool basically gets first dibs now on any liquidations that occur. If things continue to drop and the liquidity pool doesn't step in for some reason, then individuals can also step in, but it has to drop a further, I think 10%, or it gets 10% more under collateralized in order to actually be liquidatable by individuals. The whole idea here is that the proposal or the liquidations that happened as individuals were far outweighing anything that was happening for the liquidity pool, and we want the liquidity pool to also have a very healthy kind of stash of KUSD in order to actually be able to liquidate large ovens that come up. So right now we've got a couple whales that have massive ovens. If those get under collateralized, it would basically be a mad scramble for individuals to come up with 1 million KUSD or something. Now we've got this liquidity pool that actually helps in the sense that the liquidity pool can just be directed to liquidate that and then take it from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have another audience question here. Gregory asks, can we expect Calibri savings by the end of the year?
Tough to say, really. It's one of those that it's the thousand roads thing. We think that it's an important thing. There is we want to make sure that our lawyers are all cool with that and things are copacetic on that front. So it's TBD at this moment. But
I think as well, one thing I'll say there is what we just showed you, I don't control. Hover Labs has some KDAO, but we actually can't pass proposals. We have less than 50% of the KDAO that's in circulation right now, and we have way less than the supermajority requirement. So we're actually pretty powerless here. And so we have our contracts open sourced. I have a KSR that is open sourced. It is, we're trying to get a security audit for it before it gets deployed. But, anyone could come and deploy that contract and put in a DAO proposal that does that thing and makes that change. And we wouldn't be able to necessarily stop you.
Well, those are specifically the types of things that we're trying to incentivize too,
yeah,
right? Other protocol devs to come along and kind of help build out core features and kind of improve Calibri, not just through kind of adjusting parameters, but through brand new kind of innovations or brand new integrations with people or whatever, right? If people want to go talk to Binance on the behalf of the Kolibri DAO, by all means, go for it. It's just, you know, we've got our focus within kind of Hover Labs, and that's generally to kind of facilitate other people doing neat things, right? And that's kind of where we've shifted our focus to.
Yeah, and I think like we'll be obviously around for a while and like continue building like really cool stuff, but like I think, you know, as more and more people become involved, we think will fade more and more into the background and become more and more irrelevant, is always kind of has been the plan for us, right? Like we don't want to have control over this protocol.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We've kind of run out of time here.
Oh no.
Is there anything else you guys would like to announce or plug while you've got the chance?
Go ahead, Ryan.
No, the only things that I was going to say was we have a security review that we're currently kind of staffing out and getting kind of underway. So this is again, so like just to take a step back, the original Calibri protocol was reviewed through a generous grant from the Tezos Foundation. They've stepped up again to do this with the Kolibri DAO, the Liquidity Pool, and potentially the savings rate. So big shout outs to them for helping us along with this. This kind of takes this off our plate and makes it so that we don't have to spend a bunch of our time and effort to kind of make this happen. And instead, what we can do is kind of play the role of, you know, the auditors come in, we help shepherd them through the audit, and then at the end of the day, we either fix things or just say, yep, we have the seal of approval, and take it from there. So it's really exciting to finally get these things reviewed.
Yeah. I just like to pitch, you know, come get involved. So discuss.calibri.finance. Like we have a savings rate proposal up there right now. Like if you have opinions on it, works, like you want to see it launched, like those, like that's the place to come get involved, whether you hold KDAO or don't hold KDAO. If you hold KDAO, like we'd love, you know, continue to participate in governance. We will likely submit the proposal that I, you know, showed in the sandbox here later this week for a vote. So we'll lower the escrow amount to 1,000, which means like, I think like 60 people have enough KDAO that they can start submitting proposals. And so, you know, come do that and like help us build like this cool thing that we're, you know, is totally decentralized and like trustless. And I think like, you know, the more people involved is kind of the better. And like the more people involved, like the more time that Ryan and I can go like run off and like build other cool things or build more tooling, rather than shepherding governance proposals. And I think like as well, you know, one of the things we'd welcome is like there's an in-protocol treasury of both KDAO and KUSD, which also the DAO can control. So like we'd love to see people who could like make big changes and like get paid for them, right? So like if they're running social media, like great, like we would love to give them a stipend. If they are, you know, if they're running the deploy of the savings rate, like I think like that's definitely worth compensating someone for. And I think like we have, you know, 5 figures of KUSD and like 350,000 KDAO sitting around that can be distributed via like this DAO if you can convince people to vote for it. And so I think that's really cool. And we'd love to, you know, help you get started there if you're on this dream and interested.
Right. The only other thing that I would plug is the Discord. We're in the Discord all the time. We have an amazing kind of moderation group there. And as a matter of fact, somebody within our mod team, Chaz, went and built the Kolibri DAO Twitter account. So definitely go follow that as well. That's generally up on everything. And we have not really a lot of control over it. So it's one of those that now we, as Hover Labs, can say, hey, Hover Labs did this thing. And the Kolibri DAO Twitter can then go, hey, these guys did this thing. That's good stuff. But yeah, come join our community and be one of us.
Hopefully some people will take you up on it. Our point of contacts are tezoscommons.org/TezTalks. You can find our LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram links there. Kiefer and Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today. It's always awesome to speak to the people who are working behind the scenes to keep Tezos at the forefront of the blockchain revolution. To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on the TezTalks live stream. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Our awesome guests have been Kiefer Taylor and Ryan Sears from Hover Labs. Now let's go make some Post-it note art.
Woo!